Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to share with you a technique for transposing scores involving clef substitution. It's a really powerful method, and I hope you'll see why. So let's get right in. Let's consider this example by Haydn. It comes from his Trumpet Concerto Second Movement. Now, the melody is notated for trumpet in E flat. Now, what does that mean? It means that if the trumpet plays a notated C, we're going to hear an E flat. This is effectively a transposition up by a minor third because C to E flat is a minor third. So the first note is notated F, and it becomes an A flat when you hear it because that's a minor third up. Now we could transpose this by moving every single note up by a minor third, but that's quite tedious. There's a much simpler way to do that, and as implied by the title of this video, we're going to use clef substitution. So it turns out the best clef to use, or the correct clef to use, is bass clef. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the treble clefs. Let me zoom in here. And we're going to replace it with a bass clef. I'm going to change this one as well. Okay, so let me draw the lines back in. So a bass clef, and then we're going to add 3 more flats because this has 3 flats. And then we're going to do the same thing for the second staff. So let me draw some lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to have 4 flats. Sorry, I'm being lazy here, but we end up with 4 flats. So this gives us the correct transposition. It's going to sound something like this. I forgot to mention that we need to adjust the register. So this one we need to raise by 2 octaves all the way through. But the hard part is knowing which clef to use. So how do we know which clef to use? In this case, it happened to be bass clef. But what if we want to transpose to other keys or have other transposing instruments? Well, behold the clef substitution wheel. This tells you exactly how. So here's how it works. Let's say we start in treble clef, and let's say you want to transpose up by a step. So then you go clockwise by a step. Let's say you want to transpose up by another step to give you a third. You use bass clef, assuming that you started in treble clef. So up by a second, and up by a third, and so on. And you can keep going around the wheel. Let's say you started in some other clef. Let's say you started in bass clef. And let's say you wanted to transpose down by a step. Well, you go around counterclockwise, so you use alto clef. And let's say you want to transpose down a third, you use treble clef. And it's as simple as that. So we knew we had to use bass clef because we wanted to transpose up a third. And in general, transposing instruments are notated in treble clef. So I've also indicated the letters below the names of the clefs. So if it's a C instrument, it's probably going to be just treble clef. If it's a D instrument, you can probably assume you can use alto clef. And if it's an E or E flat instrument, you can use bass clef, and so on. So knowing this will help you remember which clef to use. Now, what about the key signatures? So we have to change that as well. There's actually a formula for that, and it's not that complicated, maybe not as complicated as it looks. So it's the instrument's key plus the notated key. That gives you the sounding key. For example, The Haydn was written for trumpet in E flat, and then the notated key of that example was F major, and then the sounding key is A flat. So we have 3 flats for the instrument's key, and we have 1 flat for the notated example, and then the sounding pitch that we want has 4 flats. So 3 flats plus 1 flat gives us 4 flats. So that's how that works. So let's look at another example. This one is by Brahms, and we have clarinet in B flat. If you look at the wheel, we want to go down by a step. The reason is if the clarinet plays a C, it's going to sound like a B flat. So we're transposing down by a whole step. So the correct clef to use is tenor clef. So let me adjust the clef. Let me get rid of the original clef. Try that again. Okay. And I need to use tenor clef. So let me draw the lines back in. And I need some lines up here as well. Okay, now we need accidentals. So originally it was written in 1 flat. So we need to add 2 flats because the key of the instrument is B flat, which has 2 flats. So the total is going to be 3 flats. That's going to match the concert pitch. So that's a good sign if your concert pitch and your um, transposition is correct. Okay, so 3 flats as well. That's going to be the correct transposition. So you're going to have something like this. I'm going to play the bass and the clarinet melody. So as you may have noticed, in the second system, we have some more accidentals that we have to deal with. So how do we know what they mean? So sometimes it's going to mean something else than we see. Well, keep in mind that we're adding 2 flats to the key, right? So we're adding B flat and E flat. So every time we see B or E, we have to pay attention to those accidentals. Those accidentals will change for those pitches, B and E. So let's look at some examples. So here, originally it was F sharp. That's going to be E natural. We bring it down a whole step. But E is one of the notes that changes. Okay, so this is E flat. That's bringing that accidental back to its original. Let's keep going. This would be a B in tenor clef. So the sharp becomes a natural. And then this E becomes natural as well. So E's and B's, for those notes, sharps become naturals, and naturals become flats, and so on. And let's keep going. So here we have B natural, then B flat. Now, here we have an A, but this one's natural because it's not affected by the key of the instrument, right? So remember, we added 2 flats, which were B and E. So A is not part of that. So we just keep that natural. And this G flat is not part of that either. So that's going to remain a flat. So that's how we determine the specific accidentals. But hopefully you can just hear what the accidentals should be just by listening carefully and hearing the functions. Okay, so there's how you transpose when you read a score. But let's say you want to go the other way and you want to write a part for someone else. Let's look at another example. Here is John Williams' theme from Indiana Jones. We're going to listen to it and then we're going to notate it. So let's listen to it first. It's going to be in C major. So let's say you've listened to it and paused the video and dictated the example. You're going to get something like this if you notate it in concert pitch. Now let's say you want to have your friend who plays trumpet in B flat play this example back. So how should we notate it so that this is what we get back? Well, it turns out that what we need to do is write it in D major, like this. Okay, so this is a notated version because let's say you're playing this for an instrument in B flat. You have two sharps in the key signature and two flats because of the transposing instrument. You add those together to give you 0 accidentals. That's C major, the key of the example. So this is going the other way. So I hope this concept of clef substitution was helpful in helping you to transpose. Try it yourselves and share with us your experience. So thanks for tuning into this video and see you in the next one.